Namaste, I'm Amol Bakshi, you know me right? I welcome you all on our channel Artharth We Mean Money, where we talk about finance. And today is the day where our Honorable Finance Minister has announced the annual budget. And like you, like a layman, I also don't understand a thing about finance. So we have our expert Rohit Ranade with us as usual. But today Rohit Ranade is going to be with other panelists who are also the experts in this finance field. So Rohit Ranade is going to moderate a session, a discussion with these experts on this budget of 2021. So let's go to Rohit and understand this budget piece by piece.
Hello friends. You must be surprised that why I am here instead of Amol Bakshi today. The very reason is that today I'll be the host for all of you on Artharth. We'll be bringing you a new video on the Union Budget 2021. I will be interviewing a panel of tax experts, chartered accountants, and consultants for you. We'll be bringing all the intricacies and important points which you must know about Union Budget 2021. Keep watching. Again, now coming to a topic which is probably very close to my heart, I would say, because being a professional from finance field, Gramam Padya sir, Milik sir, I would like to ask you, because I could see number of points with you, really which will have a long-term impact and on not only on the industry but also on the professionals. So I would like to know from you that what really should be the takeaways by the professionals as well as by the industry as such. The whole industry, could be manufacturing, could be any other industry or IT industry even, from this particular budget.
No, actually, I am mainly focusing on the certain aspects which the procedural aspects they have changed.
Right.
As far as assessments are concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in case of tax audits also, the limit is increased from 5 crores to 10 crores.
Yeah.
With certain conditions that your cash expenditure should not be more than 5%.
Mm-hmm.
If it is more than 5%, then tax audit is applicable.
Mm-hmm.
So, that particular limit was 5 crores before.
Correct.
Then secondly, regarding reopening of assessment.
Mm-hmm.
Reopening of assessment, previously government can go back for 6 years. Now that limit they have brought up to 3 years.
Okay. Okay.
But in certain cases, suppose there is a evasion of tax for more than 50 lakhs, then that 10 years back they can go and revoke the assessment.
Correct.
But for genuine assesses, now only 3 years they can open the assessment.
Okay.
Then secondly, there are one more committee they have appointed for small assesses, that is dispute resolution committee.
Okay.
Where your income is less than 50 lakhs and
Okay.
tax is less than 10 lakhs, you can
Okay.
go to that committee for your dispute resolution.
Okay. Okay. So earlier there was a settlement commission was there.
Settlement commission.
So should we say that the settlement commission is on hold right now?
Yeah. They have stopped the working of settlement commission from 21st of February.
Okay. So no cases would be processed by the settlement commission right now.
Which are in the pipeline that also
Okay.
they have to transfer.
Okay. So it's a different mechanism. Would it be different mechanism
Yeah,
altogether?
they are a different mechanism.
Okay.
They are protecting the interest of small assesses basically.
Correct. Because when you are going to the settlement commission, normally the quantum involved must be huge. Then only you can really afford to go for that.
Yes,
So
exactly.
for small taxpayers who have certain disputes, it would be a really good thing for them to go ahead with this kind of a committee or this kind of a mechanism, new mechanism.
And I believe just a small point regarding that, and I believe that is also a faceless committee.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a faceless.
Okay, so they are continuing with their endeavor that they wanted to go faceless completely,
Yeah,
not only
now
assessments
assessment they
or
have started, now appeal also they have started
Yes.
faceless, and new provision about the ITAT.
Yes.
That is absolutely also faceless, but with video conferencing.
Okay.
Rohit, I would also like to mention one thing, as stated earlier by Gramopadhyay sir, that they have reduced the time for filing belated return by 3 months.
Yes.
They have reduced time for this
Revised return.
revised return by 3 months.
Correct.
And also the for reassessment, reopening of assessment. So the government would like to contrast the time.
Okay.
They would like to reduce the time
Correct.
available with the
Correct.
assessees, so that because of digitization, they feel that the normal person won't need any more time,
Okay.
so that the mischievous assessees can be held responsible for that, and they can be reduced in the numbers. So they would, on one side they are going with this e-assessment,
Faceless and all.
faceless thing,
Right.
and other side they are reducing the time frame.
Curtailing
Curtailing
probably
the time frame.
Basically,
Probably-
the reason they have given because of huge computerization.
Yes.
It requires less time.
Less
for
time.
processing.
So probably it could be only the current affairs you have to be. You
Yeah.
have to do only the current affairs and you should not live in past.
Yes.
Otherwise, this used to be a very common practice that things used to linger long.
Related to due dates, I have got 2-3 points to add.
Yeah.
First of all, we know that if any transfer pricing regulations are applicable, section 9091, 3CB form was to be filed and due date was 30th November.
Yes.
That due date has been made applicable to firms also. Earlier the language of the section was only companies were eligible.
Yeah.
Now they have made specifically applicable for firms also if transfer pricing regulations are applicable.
Okay.
And second is section 143(1), summary assessments which we receive. There officially they have reduced the time to 9 months.
Okay.
From this thing.
This is 1 month.
Practically we are receiving in a couple of days only, but legally they have received the maximum time limit allowed for 143(1) assessment orders.
Okay.
And next, in last few years, they have been making it compulsory to file return within due date to avail of various deductions and benefits.
Yes.
Now they have gone further and added few more sections to that list, like 8010AA, 80IA, 80IAB, all the others, 80I series subsections, whatever they are. They have been added to the list where you have to file the return within due date if you want to claim benefit of that deduction or exemption.
Okay.
So due dates are going to be much more critical, especially if anybody is having this exempt
Kind of
deduction claimable income. They have to be very careful about that.
Okay, so Deepak, should we say that not only the professionals but also the business community should ensure that they adhere to the due dates? Because very commonly we see that though the compliances are actually not adding to the revenue, but they are definitely reducing your revenue because of the penalties, prosecutions and interests. So everybody has to adhere to the due dates?
See, we cannot see it merely point of view of revenue point of view. It's a larger compliance matter, and it's a matter of discipline. So over the years we have, when I say we, assessees and consultants and government, everybody has been taking these due dates lightly. Now gradually they are moving towards a situation where everybody is forced to take those deadlines strictly. And especially for this year, despite COVID, lot of demand from professionals and businesses was there for extension of time limit for that company's amnesty scheme and tax due date. The ministry and bureaucracy didn't agree to the extension because they don't want to give out, handing out doles even for professionals, not just to blue-collar workers but white-collar workers also. So somewhere they wanted to cut that habit. Although it was a painful in the immediate aftermath of that this thing non-extension, but it will make everybody realize the importance and henceforth everybody I think or hope that they will show the alacrity in compliance matters.
But it was a genuine demand of extension. Basically, when there is a merger of Bank of Baroda, Dena Bank and Vijaya Bank, the clients were not getting bank statement. maybe some mechanism was not.
No, I agree the demand or expectations of the industry and profession is genuine. Probably they took a wrong time to implement the right decision. So, yes, that can be this thing, and some people are now speculating. Industry and professions went on a protest on 29th January. This increase of audit limit to 10 crores, removal of audit from GST is somewhat retaliatory in nature. I don't think, because these things are decided long before this 29th January. So it is mere speculation or hurt feeling of profession, and especially profession. Industry is of course happy. So I think we should not attribute malicious intent to ease of business, and ease of business has been a long-term motto for them, and they are implementing it in a phased manner as and when situation demands. Now, even for GST audit, there was a request for extension of time limit. Even for financial year 1920 GST audit, people are already asking for extension of time limit. So I think the message now is loud and clear that we will not get any extension. So we should be prepared to slow out and complete these GST audits for financial year 1920 before 20th February.
Okay. One more point I would like to ask you, Milind sir, is about there is one new section which is 194Q.
Yeah, 194Q is regarding the TDS section. This section basically they have brought in where your purchase of goods are more than 50 lakhs.
Okay.
Then TDS is applicable, but there are also provision that when ECS is applicable to that, then TDS is not applicable, because TDS is brought in from 1st October.
Okay.
Where your sale of goods is more than 50 lakhs.
Correct.
Now this is purchase of goods more than 50 lakhs. But either ECS is applicable or either TDS is applicable.
Okay, so
That
they
kind
are
of new provision they have brought in.
okay, so they are ensuring that none of the ends are loose. So both the ends are quite tight. Okay.
Related to TDS, there is another provision being added. Section 206AB for TDS.
Okay, 206AB.
And 206CCA for TCS.
Okay.
So where this is a new provision where they are adding that I will update about TDS specifically. Excluding few TDS like 192, 192A, 194B and couple more other. If the deductee or recipient is not filing his returns for previous 2 years, and for in those 2 years his total TDS amount is exceeding 50,000, then the deductor has to deduct, means if he is the pay is non-compliant. Non-compliant.
Non-filer. Per se.
Yeah. Then the deductor has to deduct TDS at the higher of 5% of the double of the actual applicable TDS. So this brings an onerous task on the deductor to verify. We have not yet seen the fine print or details rules how this is going to be implemented. But now deductor has to obtain the details of return filing and previous year's TDS details of the payee. So I think this is going to increase the compliance or documentation burden for the deductor.
And provided he should prove that he has filed the returns.
Yes, he has to
But he has not
document
filed
this. For employees, how we have to collect investment proof and LTA proof, everything. Similarly, whenever there is payment exceeding this limit, we have to collect. I think there is no limit in the current financial year. See, for current year, I may be having only 1 lakh payment to that person. But as the section stands today, I want to get these details for previous 2 years to check whether he's covered or not.
So at least practically difficult that the person should give his acknowledgement that he is filing his return.
People are not comfortable sharing their
sharing their
income details.
basically.
Certainly, and why should I give the returns to the third party? My own income, my other income is also get disclosed in the income tax returns.
Yes.
Should be the very, I would say, the injustice to the
I think you can take a declaration.
Or a
you can take
compliance certificate or declaration.
sort of maybe
suffice.
just such kind of mechanism
Right.
should be there. Means asking the income tax return directly would
Instead
be
of
the
asking
very
income tax return, you can ask the compliance and acknowledgement number for your record.
sort of.
And Also, I think under section 206 AA, I don't recall exactly what it is. TDS rate has been reduced from 20% to 5%.
Okay, okay.
I think there is some
Regarding
conditions.
Non-availability of time.
Right.
Okay. So that rate has been reduced now.
Yeah, from 20 to 5% or actual rate.
Whichever.
Whichever is
applicable, something
okay,
like that.
okay, okay. So now we have just talked about the individual taxation, the real estate or the infrastructure, also from the business perspective. But there are two things probably which we really need to discuss on. First thing is about the charitable organizations or trusts or societies. And second is the other limb, I would say, or the other pillar is the indirect taxes. So, Deepak, I would like to come to you for both these topics. So, first thing is that what the budget has brought for the trusts. So, is there really any change, positive or negative as such? And secondly, what are the impacts from the point of view of the indirect taxation? What are the amendments? What are the changes which have been proposed?
As far as trust compliances are there, I wouldn't say they're classified as positive or negative. Rather, it is more of a compliance strengthening requirements.
Okay.
I will just list out a couple of things. First of all, whenever we receive corpus funds, we claim it as exempt. Now, while claiming exempt, there was no specific restriction on how to park those funds.
Right.
For accumulation of donations, there was under section 11 subsection 5, there was a clause how to park those funds or keep those funds invested. Now, same rules will be applicable for corpus for donations also.
Okay.
So that is first thing. And if you are utilizing those corpus funds, you cannot club that into your general donation application of fund.
Okay, so
85%, 85%. You cannot claim
85%.
You can use corpus funds and say I have applied 85% of my donations receipts. No. So direct nexus between corpus funds and utilization for corpus purpose has been established. So you cannot mingle these two donations.
Okay.
Third one is, if you are borrowing any money and if you are applying that borrowed money for charitable purpose in that particular year, it will not be treated as application for charitable purposes. Only the repayment of borrowed money will be treated as application for charitable purposes.
Okay.
So that
Correct.
they have brought in
It's
this
a
thing.
kind of clarification basically.
Basically, they are squeezing you in a box. What funds you can use, or you cannot divert from your stated this thing. You are boxing you in a compartment where you have to comply with this requirement. And another thing is, if there is any excess application in particular year, you cannot claim that excess set off in subsequent year. So, like in business, loss carry forward is there. Like that loss carry forward or excess surplus application money, you cannot claim benefit in subsequent year.
Okay.
So this is going to be a real problem where in one particular year charitable organization spends more than what is required and there is a net excess outflow. That benefit you
The
cannot
only thing is that
claim
whatever excess you have spent,
Hmm.
you can appropriate those funds to the deficit which you have not spent last year. When you
Huh.
write Form 10.
You cannot carry forward the deficit.
You cannot carry
That
forward.
they have put a lay down. And last thing is under section 1023, certain educational institutions, hospitals were having benefit. That benefit was limited only to the extent of receipts of 1 crore. Now that limit they have increased from 1 crore to 5 crores.
Okay.
So that is going to benefit a lot of small
Educational
Schools and
and hospitals.
Right.
Basically, they are reducing the compliance burden. So I think we can call this one thing as a positive. This thing, right? Rest of them are all on the negative side from assessing point of view.
Okay. And so now this is regarding the trusts what we have talked about. So what are really the insights, or I would say the points which we have to draw from the indirect taxation perspective?
Indirect, to start with GST, now they have brought in a amendment saying that distribution of any services or goods to members or constituents will attract GST. For example, if society is giving something to the members, or if JV member is drawing something from JV, or member is giving something to the JV or society, that will now attract GST.
Mutuality concept.
That mutual concept has been done away with.
Done away
You cannot
with,
claim that
yes.
it is mutual benefit or something.
Okay.
You are a different entity, so you are liable for GST.
Okay.
Now, lot of issues have been spoken or discussed regarding disallowance of input credit if the supplier has not provided this thing.
Right.
Few cases have been going on in courts claiming that this is extra constitutional, means there is no mandate in the law to claim. Now they have brought amendment specifically saying that you will get input credit only if the supplier has uploaded those details supplied to you in the return and informed you regarding the invoice or debit note. So now they are making it legal. So all whatever legal court cases are going, probably they will be dismissed. And again, provision which is hard hitting for professionals is GST audit has been removed.
Right.
So in income tax at least they have increased the limit to 10 crores. Here they have done away with totally.
Right.
Still, assessee has to file a reconciliation statement. That is 9C, but it need not be certified by a professional. So just like what GSTR 9 was, assessee was filing himself. So 9C will also be assessee's own submission. And regarding one more amendment with retrospective effect is they have introduced this beneficial clause where interest will be applicable on net tax liability. Although there are court cases going on, they had mentioned in GST Council last year itself that they will do, but it was not notified.
Correct.
Now they have notified it with retrospective.
Ambiguity is clearly clarified now.
Right.
And if you are going to file any appeal under GST, now in GST also you have to deposit 25% pre-deposit before filing an
So
appeal.
before going in appeal, you have to make a pre-payment kind of a thing.
And one more this thing, if there is any self-assessed tax liability, GST liability, it cannot be paid through ITC, input setup.
Okay.
It has to be through cash balance, cash credit balance.
Cash advance. Okay. So now, as we have already covered various things, but one point, Anand,
I have couple of this thing. One point related to IGST. In zero rated, that is export and sale to SEZ, few conditions have been added.
Okay.
I don't note on all the conditions what are there, but there are few more conditions, so you have to be careful what you are doing.
okay,
And
okay.
2-3 points relating to customs, I think I will take.
Yeah, definitely. We'll again have few more things. Anand, actually, we have really discussed about the individuals. One thing which we have all heard about in the budget session is about pre-filling of return, right? So it was already going on. So what's really new in that pre-filling of these returns? So is there anything change in that policy?
Yeah, there is a big change. As other compliances are increasing,
Right.
they are simplifying the filing of return, income tax return, in small bit way. So earlier, the pre-filled XML files are available for the small return filers, small
Right.
income or the limited income assessees.
Right.
Those were earlier, it was available since last 2 years.
Right.
It was earlier available for salary and interest income
From
assessees.
banks.
From banks, right?
Okay.
So now the pre-filling is available for capital gains as well, and in interest income from banks and post offices as well from
Okay.
this year onwards. So
Okay.
whenever we file or an individual files a return, he can have the pre-filled XML through his income tax portal ready with all those details, the salary
Yeah.
details, interest details, capital gains from shares, listed shares and mutual funds.
No, I think capital gains there will going to be only partial information.
Yeah,
in
of
the
course.
sense only sale related.
Right,
Even
of
if
course.
it is not just shares, even if it is a house property or something, wherever that data is captured through
26 AS.
26 AS, only that information is going to be pre-populated.
Yeah.
Capital gains, it is only sale part which is going to be populated.
Yeah.
You have to update that information with your purchase data from your records.
Absolutely.
Yes, but in Deepak, I would like to mention here that now every common person is dealing in shares and security. So earlier there was the question that there were 50 to 100 transactions of one single person, which we have to incorporate in the return. Since last year, you have to enter line by line item for security.
Correct.
Now it would help you that at least you will get half of the data field. There are number of transactions, 100, 200 transactions of common person in a security transaction. So now you will get pre-filled.
No, the real pain till date was applying the FIFO method for setting of sale against the purchase.
Yeah.
So that pain point is still going to remain
Yes.
because these individuals are not meticulously maintaining their records,
Yeah.
and we have to dig in a lot
Yes.
and go through previous year records also, what has been done or which particular purchase has been set off. There are many issues regarding bonus issues, rights issues, and company name
that
change.
will go on, that will go
So those were the major pain points, and they still exist.
They still exist.
So capturing the sale part was easier part because it was readily available in this particular year transaction itself.
Yeah.
So I think we will keep struggling to gather this information.
The struggle will increase because now you will get the half part
Half
as
cooked
sold.
data.
So you have to dig in for those also.
You are saying till date ignorance of this.
Yes, you can.
Related to individual taxation, just one more point I have to highlight.
Yeah.
There is on section 89A. This specifically related to individuals who have migrated back to India
Yeah.
and they have retirement funds abroad.
Right.
So there was always an issue, what is the taxability of income from those retired funds? So till date we have been taking the stand that other income we are taxing on a receipt basis, so we will not declare now. So whenever you withdraw, it becomes taxable.
Correct.
Now they have brought some rules, specific rules regarding how it has to be treated. Those details I don't have right now, but now it is in the act itself how that investment, retirement benefit investment abroad has to be treated for taxation.
It is claimed that it would be directly linked to DTA. Treaty.
At treaty rates.
Rationalized with DTA.
Yes, in few countries they have this exemption for
Yeah,
retirement
absolutely.
benefit.
Yes.
Those will also get exemption in India, which we are claiming earlier also. But if in some countries if it is taxable, then in India also it would get taxable immediately.
Yeah, it would be rationalized as per the
Yes.
DTA, double taxation avoidance rules.
So probably we have to wait for the fine print to come.
Yes.
So really look into what these rules are.
Whew. That discussion was exhausting, but yes, it was fruitful and it was a learning experience for all of us, right? I hope you must have understood this budget in detail. So just go back to this video if you haven't understood. Learn everything and use it in your finance. Remember, we have already learned that accounts and finance is different, right? So we'll keep on coming on this channel. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Please share our video and subscribe to our channel, because henceforth in this year we are going to come up with many more such topics which are important in our daily life, in our finances, in our accounts, from the layman's perspective. Signing off, Amol Bakshi on Artharth We Mean Money.